Most royal weddings are about politics, power, and duty. But for Queen Victoria, her wedding to Prince Albert was something far more rare. It was a story of a woman deeply, hopelessly in love. Today on Forgotten Loves, we are stepping back to 1840 to witness the day that changed how the world gets married and the eternal devotion that even death couldn't break. Victoria and Albert were actually first cousins. Their mothers were sisters, and their fathers were brothers. They first met when they were just 17, but it wasn't exactly love at first sight for the future queen. Victoria found him, quote unquote, disgusting, but wasn't ready to marry. She wanted her independence. However, when Albert returned 3 years later, everything changed. Victoria was now queen, and she was absolutely smitten by his quote-unquote exquisite beauty. Because she was the reigning monarch, social etiquette dictated that she had to be the one to propose. On October 15th, 1839, she did just that. In her diary, she called it the happiest day of her life. On a rainy morning in London, Victoria traveled by golden carriage to the Chapel Royal at St. James Place. While many royals today marry at Westminster Abbey, Victoria found St. James the perfect place to get married. The Chapel Royal has hosted many famous weddings, including George V and Queen Mary. But Victoria's wedding was the last time a reigning British queen married while on the throne. Let's talk about the dress. Before Victoria, royal brides wore heavy brocades of silver and gold. Victoria chose white, not to symbolize purity, but to show off her intricate, Hodded-in lace. She wanted to support the struggling English lace makers of the time. She wore a wreath of orange blossoms instead of a tiara, symbolizing fertility, and a 12-foot train carried by 12 bridesmaids. At the wedding, she actually had the pattern for her dress destroyed so no one could ever copy it. For her something blue, Albert gave her a stunning sapphire brooch surrounded by diamonds the day before the wedding. The brooch has been passed down to family member after family member and seemed to be a favorite of Queen Elizabeth's. And then there was the cake. It was 300 pounds of plum cake. In 1997, a single slice of this most likely very stale cake sold at auction for 1,500 pounds. That's roughly $2,400 in 1997 US dollars, or nearly $4,600 today. Victoria was so obsessed with her wedding day that she would often put on her wedding garments again for portraits and anniversaries. She felt that on that day, she wasn't just a queen, she was a wife. Queen Victoria profoundly influenced weddings, popularizing the white wedding dress, orange blossoms, bridal bouquets, and formalized receptions, establishing many traditions that remain central to Western weddings today, even though she chose white to highlight her lace, not for purity. Her 1840 marriage to Prince Albert set standards for bridal fashion, media coverage, and even structure, making her one of the first wedding influencers. Victoria and Albert's 21 years of happiness was cut short in 1861 when Albert died at just 42. Victoria never recovered. She wore black for the remaining 40 years of her life, but in private, she kept his memory alive in haunting ways. She had his clothes laid out every morning and fresh water brought to his basin as if he were still there. Victoria broke tradition by refusing to be buried in the royal vaults of Westminster or Windsor. Instead, she built the massive royal mausoleum at Frogmore, just down the road from Windsor. It basically was a hug in stone for her and her angel, Albert. When Victoria finally passed in 1901, she left secret instructions. Her instructions dictated that she wanted to be buried in a white dress and her wedding veil, the same veil she wore in 1840. She requested the veil be draped over her face as a symbol of eternal union with Albert. Inside her coffin, she placed Albert's dressing gown and a plaster cast of his hand so she could hold it through eternity. Today, you can see her wedding dress and the sapphire brooch at Kensington Palace, while her orange blossom wreath remains a treasure of the royal collection. Their love story didn't end happily ever after in life, but through the traditions we still use today, the white dress, the orange blossoms, the romantic devotion, Queen Victoria and Prince Albert live on. If you enjoyed this glimpse into a forgotten love, please be sure to like this video, subscribe to Forgotten Loves, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next historical romance. Until next time, keep exploring the hidden heart of history.